I'm Raymond, 58 years old, an insurance agent in a quiet Ohio community where news travels faster than the mail. My wife, Vanessa, and I had been married for 27 years. We raised 2 daughters, Danielle and Brooke, who now lived in different states. The house had become quieter over the years. Too quiet, if I'm being honest. People assume long marriages either become perfect or miserable. The truth is less dramatic. Sometimes they just become routine. Vanessa worked at a local healthcare clinic. I handled insurance accounts. We ate dinner together most nights, watched old crime shows, and argued about whose turn it was to call the girls. Nothing unusual. Then a package showed up. I noticed it on a Tuesday afternoon. A medium-sized brown box sitting on the laundry room shelf. The shipping label wasn't addressed to us. It belonged to a woman named Patricia Holloway from another neighborhood. Wrong delivery? I asked. Vanessa barely looked up from her coffee. Probably. I'll deal with it. Simple answer. Normal answer. Except the package stayed there. 3 days later, it was still there. A week later, same spot. When I mentioned it again, Vanessa became strangely irritated. It's not important, Raymond. That response bothered me more than it should have. Men my age learn something valuable. When a small question receives a big reaction, the real issue isn't the question. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed other changes. Vanessa started checking her phone more often. She became unusually concerned about her appearance before work. She spent longer looking in the mirror. Not vanity. Anxiety. There was a difference. One evening our neighbor, Gregory, stopped by to return a ladder he had borrowed. While we talked in the driveway, he casually mentioned seeing Vanessa at a coffee shop across town. She looked upset, he said. Was everything okay? That caught my attention. Vanessa had told me she was working late that day. I didn't accuse her of anything. That's not how I operate. I simply started paying attention. The package remained untouched. 3 weeks after it arrived, I came home during lunch and found Vanessa standing alone in the laundry room, holding the box. The moment she saw me, she nearly dropped it. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she slid the package behind a basket and forced a smile. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about a delivery mistake. It was about a secret. And before the week was over, I was determined to find out exactly what my wife was hiding. I thought I was dealing with one strange package. I had no idea it was connected to something much bigger. The next morning, I decided to do something many husbands avoid. I stopped guessing and started observing. Not spying. Not snooping through drawers like a teenager in a bad movie. Just paying attention to facts. Facts tell a cleaner story than emotions ever do. Vanessa left for work at 7:30. I left shortly after. Around noon, I called my assistant, Monica, and asked her to cover the office for an extra hour. Then I drove home. The package was gone. That stopped me cold. For 3 weeks it had occupied the same spot on the laundry room shelf. Now it had vanished. I searched the garage. Nothing. Basement. Nothing. Trash cans. Nothing. The box had disappeared. That evening I asked a simple question. Did you finally return that package? Vanessa froze for half a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed. After 27 years of marriage, I did. Yes, she said. I took care of it. No details. No explanation. Just a quick answer followed by an immediate change of subject. Later that night, while she was showering, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wasn't interested in reading messages. But the screen lit up. One name appeared. Patricia. My stomach tightened. The same name from the shipping label. The message preview was short. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. That was it. No hearts. No romance. No obvious betrayal. Yet it raised more questions than it answered. The following Saturday, Vanessa told me she was meeting her friend Bethany for lunch. An hour later I happened to pass a cafe across town while meeting a client. There sat Vanessa. Across from a woman I had never seen before. Definitely not Bethany. The woman looked nervous. Vanessa looked emotional. I kept driving. Some men would have stormed inside. I wasn't interested in a public scene. I wanted the truth, not a dramatic performance. That evening I called Bethany. We've known her for nearly 20 years. After some small talk, I asked how lunch had been. Silence. Then Bethany answered carefully. Raymond. I haven't seen Vanessa in almost 3 weeks. There it was. A confirmed lie. Not proof of wrongdoing. But proof of deception. I sat alone on the back patio after the call ended. The sun was setting. The neighborhood was quiet. I kept asking myself the same question. Why would a woman who had spent nearly 3 decades building trust suddenly start hiding things? The package. Patricia. The coffee shop meetings. The lies. None of it fit together. At least not yet. Then, just before bed, another piece of the puzzle appeared. Vanessa received a voicemail. She listened to it in the hallway, thinking I was asleep. But I heard one sentence clearly through the partially open bedroom door. She deserves to know the truth eventually. Vanessa didn't respond. She just started crying. And for the first time, I realized this secret might not be about her at all. I thought I was finally getting close to an answer. I was wrong. The next discovery changed the entire direction of my investigation. I barely slept that night. The voicemail replayed in my mind for hours. She deserves to know the truth eventually. Not he. She. That single word dismantled half the theories I had built over the previous weeks. The next morning, I stopped focusing on Vanessa and started focusing on Patricia. If she was connected to the package, the messages, and the secret meetings, then understanding her might explain everything else. I began reconstructing a timeline. The package arrived 3 weeks earlier. A few days later, Gregory had seen Vanessa upset at the coffee shop. Then came the phone messages. Then the lies about lunch. Each event pointed back to the same person. Patricia. That afternoon I visited my older friend Walter, a retired mail carrier who knew nearly everyone in our county. We talked about fishing, grandkids, and sore knees before I casually mentioned the name Patricia Holloway. Walter's expression changed immediately. Patricia, he asked. I know who that is. My pulse quickened. According to Walter, Patricia had moved into the area less than a year earlier after caring for a sick relative in another state. She kept mostly to herself and rarely attended community events. Nothing suspicious. Nothing dramatic. But one detail stood out. Walter said Patricia had recently spent a great deal of time at the local hospital. I thanked him and left. Now the pieces were shifting again. Hospital visits. Private meetings. Emotional phone calls. Vanessa crying in the hallway. This didn't sound like an affair. It sounded like a burden. The problem was that my wife still wasn't telling me about it. That evening I tried something direct. Vanessa, I said during dinner, is there something difficult you're carrying alone? She looked up from her plate. For a moment I thought she might finally open up. Instead, she forced a smile. I'm fine. A simple answer. A dishonest one. After dinner she disappeared into the den. An hour later, our daughter Danielle called me. At first we discussed normal things. Work. Family. Travel plans. Then she asked an unexpected question. Dad, has Mom talked to you about Patricia? The room went silent. I nearly dropped the phone. No, I said carefully. Why would she? Danielle hesitated. Maybe I shouldn't be the one saying anything. My heart pounded. Danielle. Another pause. Then she sighed. Mom promised she'd tell you herself. Before I could ask another question, she ended the conversation. Now my own daughter was connected to the mystery. I sat alone in the kitchen staring at the dark window above the sink. For 3 weeks I had been chasing clues. Now I had something far more troubling. Evidence that multiple people in my family knew a truth being kept from me. And I was done waiting. The next morning, I opened an old file cabinet looking for unrelated paperwork. What I found buried in the back changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The file cabinet sat in the corner of my home office. I hadn't opened the bottom drawer in years. I was looking for insurance records. Instead, I found a thin manila folder with my name written on it in Vanessa's handwriting. That got my attention immediately. Inside were copies of medical documents. Not hers. Mine. I sat down and started reading. The reports were from routine examinations I'd had over the previous 2 years. Nothing alarming at first glance. Then I noticed several highlighted sections and handwritten notes in the margins. Questions. Reminders. Follow-up recommendations. The notes weren't from a doctor. They were from Vanessa. Page after page showed evidence that she had been tracking every health concern I'd casually brushed aside. My chest tightened. I remembered all the times she had asked me to schedule appointments. All the times I'd said, I'm fine. Like many men my age, I treated medical checkups as suggestions rather than instructions. Suddenly the hospital connection didn't seem so random. That evening I drove to see Danielle. I needed answers. When I arrived, she greeted me with the expression of someone carrying a secret that had become too heavy. We sat at her kitchen table. Mom's trying to protect you, she said quietly. I don't need protection, I replied. I know. Then she told me more. Over the past year, Vanessa had become increasingly worried about my health and about retirement approaching faster than either of us wanted to admit. She had been speaking with Patricia, a woman who had recently lost her husband after he ignored warning signs for years. The two women met through a hospital support program. The room felt very still. Pieces began sliding into place. The coffee shop meetings. The tears. The hospital visits. But one question remained. What was in the package? Danielle looked away. You need to ask Mom that. When I returned home, Vanessa was waiting in the living room. She knew where I had been. She knew the walls around her secret were finally collapsing. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then I sat across from her. No anger. No raised voice. Just facts. I know about Patricia. The color drained from her face. I know about the meetings. Tears appeared instantly. I know Danielle has been helping you. Vanessa covered her mouth. Years of marriage teach you to recognize the moment someone realizes the truth can no longer stay hidden. This was that moment. For several seconds she simply cried. Then she stood up, walked to the hallway closet, and returned carrying something I hadn't seen since it disappeared. The package. She placed it on the coffee table between us. Her hands were shaking. Raymond, she whispered, before you open that, there's something I should have told you months ago. I thought the mystery was finally ending. In reality, the hardest conversation of our entire marriage was about to begin. Vanessa sat across from me, staring at the package as if it weighed 100 pounds. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Patricia's husband died 6 months ago. I nodded. I already knew part of that story. What I didn't know was why it had become part of ours. Vanessa wiped her eyes and continued. She told me about the years before he passed. He ignored symptoms. Delayed appointments. Kept saying he was fine. Her voice cracked. All I could think about was you. The room went quiet. I looked down at the package. What's inside? Vanessa pushed it toward me. I opened it carefully. Inside were folders, brochures, retirement planning materials, health screening information, and handwritten notes. Hundreds of handwritten notes. Mine. Every concern she had been too afraid to say directly. Every appointment she wanted me to make. Every dream she hoped we'd still have time to enjoy. Trips. Family gatherings. Future grandchildren. Growing old together. One note stopped me cold. I don't know how to make him understand that I want more years with him, not more money from him. I read it twice. Then a third time. Suddenly the entire puzzle made sense. The lies had been real. The secrecy had been real. But the reason wasn't betrayal. It was fear. Fear of retirement. Fear of aging. Fear of losing me. Fear that if she admitted how scared she was, she would sound weak. For weeks she had been talking with Patricia, trying to figure out how to reach me. Instead of trusting me with her fears, she hid them. Instead of trusting her, I started building theories. Two people protecting themselves. Two people creating distance. The oldest marriage trap in the world. I looked her in the eyes. You should have told me. She nodded immediately. I know. No lies. No secret meetings. No involving Danielle. More tears. I know. Then she said something I'll never forget. I wasn't afraid of telling you the truth. I was afraid you'd dismiss it. That one sentence hurt because there was some truth in it. I had spent years solving problems, working hard, and pushing forward. But listening is different from solving. Sometimes your spouse doesn't need a solution. Sometimes they need to know they're being heard. We talked for hours that night. Not argued. Talked. Really talked. About aging. About retirement. About health. About fears neither of us had admitted out loud. By midnight, we had a plan. Complete financial transparency. Regular medical checkups. Monthly conversations with no phones and no distractions. Most importantly, no more carrying fears alone. Over the following months, we followed through. Actions matter more than promises. I scheduled appointments. She stopped hiding concerns. We created a shared retirement plan. The girls noticed the difference almost immediately. The tension disappeared. The partnership returned. One Saturday, months later, Vanessa and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just two people who nearly let silence create a crisis. She reached for my hand. I squeezed hers. Not because everything was perfect. Because we were finally facing life on the same side again. Marriage isn't saved by winning arguments. It's saved when two people choose honesty over pride. And sometimes forgiveness isn't about overlooking a mistake. It's about being strong enough to understand why it happened and wise enough to make sure it doesn't happen again. What if the greatest threat to a marriage isn't betrayal, but silence? One hidden fear nearly pushed this family apart, yet a husband's calm determination uncovered a truth that ultimately made their bond stronger than ever.